being able to mess with your opponent's Don in a deck like Black Yellow Luffy just feels so good. Hey, what's going on YouTube? It's Adakai TCG, and I'm coming at you with another deck profile video. Today I'm going to be talking about one of my favorite leaders, Purple Luffy. And this is the OP05 Luffy leader. And this may be a little bit of an early video. I'm not going to be talking about the 8.5 version of the deck. The whole deck kind of changes once the starter deck does come out. But I do think even in the OP8 meta, pre-starter deck, this deck does have legs and can perform pretty well into what is considered meta decks. And so let's go ahead and talk about the leader. We'll talk about the deck, why I think it's still strong, and kind of like the few caveats that I have though as I explain. But let's talk about the leader. So this is obviously a custom that I've done. It is available on the site. I am also running a fall promotion, guys. I'm running a fall promotion, so it's going to end next week. But you can do a buy 2 get 1, buy 3 get 2, or buy 5 get 4 free. And so make sure to take advantage of that. I'm going to be having some more cards dropping this week as well, so be on the lookout for that. And with that being said, let's go into the video. So Monkey D. Luffy, he is the mono purple leader, 5k power with the strike attribute, and yeah, meaning he's 5 life, but he really kind of plays like a 4 life leader because of his leader ability, which is activate main. Once per turn, you may add 1 card from the top of your life to your hand, and if you have 0 or 3 or more Dawn cards on your field, add up to 1 Dawn card from your Dawn deck and set it as active. And so what that basically means is you take a life and you ramp a Dawn, and it's great because Purple loves to ramp Dawn and play these bodies that are bigger and badder than any other deck color. And so with that being said, let's go through some of the key things that make it work and the key combos. We are running 2 copies of Bone Clay. This is a really good card on your 4 Dawn turn if you don't have the page 1 ulti, but he's 4 cost, 1k power with a 1k counter, meaning he's not going to be dead in your hands. And on play, you can add up to 1 Dawn from your Dawn deck and set it as active. When attacking, choose up to 1 of your opponent's characters, and this character has the same base power as the chosen character for this turn, meaning he can mimic anyone's base power on your opponent's board, meaning the higher boss monsters that your opponent summons, the higher this guy can swing for a turn. And so really, really strong card, really annoying, and has to be dealt with once he's on the board. But even if he is dealt with, say by like a black deck or like a blue deck, you still get the active Dawn ramped. And so he does get some value at least, right? And so really good card, because if you go first, you're on your 3 Dawn turn. On turn 2, you use your Luffy leader ability, you go up to 4 Dawn, you play Bone Clay, you go up to 5 Dawn, and now you can attach that 1 Dawn to Luffy to swing 6, and now you're already going to be on 7 Dawn starting your turn 3. So you just basically skip the whole turn of ramping. So he kind of like plays into what Luffy wants to do to kind of get into our more top end decks, or cards rather. And so really strong card. We're running it a 2 of because he's also really good into like the Black Yellow Luffy matchup. I do like to establish him at some point in that matchup and just like have him swing being like a 9k or adding 2 Dawn to him and being 11k into the BY Luffy once the Mori is established. And so I'm okay with him at the 2-0 for now. The deck is really tight on ratios, and you can make some adjustments, but there are some choices that I made for this deck that just kind of made it feel pretty good. And so yeah, anyway, this is just a good flexible card. Even if you see it late, it can just be a counter, and so you're never really sad about seeing this. And he could just be a really good card to establish in the late game too, right? Because it's higher chances that your opponent has higher power characters to copy off of, and so sometimes he can just be that last swing that you need to really close out a game. We're running 4 copies of Magellan. I wish we could run 6 copies, but yeah. So he's a 5 cost, 6k power. He's from OP02, but he still is such a strong purple card. No counter, so he's a brick in hand, but On play, you Don -1. Your opponent returns one of their Don to their Don deck. And if you're on your opponent's turn, if this character is KO'd by your opponent has to return 2 Don cards from their field to their Don deck. And so, really good at setting your opponent back. And in a meta that's already kind of been slower and kind of like stalling to establish some bigger bodies like Jack, Moria, things of that nature. This Moria or Magellan will just save you a turn or two, which could oftentimes really throw a wrench into your opponent's plans and help you close out the game before then. And so, really strong card, especially if you see it on curve. I like to go second into a lot of matchups with Purple Luffy and hope that I have this in hand or that I draw into it, because turn 2, you can drop this guy, because obviously, right, turn 2, you're on 4 Dawn. Luffy leader ability to be on 5 Dawn. You drop Magellan, and now you set your opponent back and established a beefy body on board. We were running 2 copies of Khalifa. I do like this card. I think she's my 2K of choice. But I'm running only at a 2 of because I do like the other 2Ks slightly better. But we were running a lot of 2Ks. We're running 14 2Ks, I think, in this deck, which is kind of needed because of how many bricks you're running and how much you're taking your life, too. And so you want to be quite defensive. But Khalifa's also not a really bad card to play either, right? She's a 4-cost, 4K power, meaning you still do need to attach a Dawn to get her to swing into the leader. But she does have when attacking, where you Dawn -1, you draw 2 cards and discard 1 from your hand. So it's basically the queen effect on attack. And so in a deck where we're running a lot of bricks and where we really kind of want to see our pieces, if we just drew poorly in the beginning, Khalifa can help fix our hand, kind of like a Sabo thing, or help us draw into more counters if we need to. And so running that at a 2 of, because it's also a 2K, so it's very flexible. We are running 2 copies of Paulie. 2 seems like enough for me. You could argue a 3 of, but honestly, this card has it's like good on curve if you're on the 7 Dawn, and is great in the very end of the game if you need to KO a blocker and just push your game. And so, other than that, I don't want to see more than 1 copy per game usually, and so that's why 2 feels okay to me. And what he does is a 5-cost, 6K power. On play, you can rest 2 Dawn, add up to 1 Dawn from your Dawn deck and set it as active, so he ramps you 1 active Dawn. Then, if you have 8 or more Dawn, in play, KO up to 1 of your opponent's characters with a cost of 4 or less. And so, really good target to hit things like Kuzan, Rebecca, like the new Chopper in the the Zoro deck, and things of that nature. And so, yeah, 2 of seems good to me. You could run it more of, and if you do want to run it more of, I would probably drop this next card. But I do like to play Missile Sunday. It's a 5-cost, 5K power. On play, add up to 1 Rest of Dawn card from your Dawn deck to your play area, and then if you have 6 or more Dawn, you draw a card. And so she lets us draw a card. We establish a 5K body, but she has a great trigger, right? So the trigger is Dawn -2. You may return the 2 Dawn from your field to the Dawn deck, and then play this card. So she can be cheated out, and that does matter sometimes. Like in some games, like this was the extra body that I needed to close out the game, and boom, you get it, and it just feels great. And so, yeah, 2 of seems okay for me. Again, we're running a tight list, and so Fernosuke, he's going to be one of our other 2Ks. He's a 5-cost, 4K power, which is not a great stat line overall. I really wish he was a 5K or 5-cost, 5K power, but I think that card would just be a little bit busted if that were the case. But yeah, so again, he's a 2K counter, and Dawn ×1. If you have 8 or more cards on your Dawn field, this character gains Rush. So it's a 2K that flexes as a Rush, just in case you need that 1 extra last swing. He can swing 5 for 6 Dawn, basically, and a 7K for 8 Dawn, which is quite expensive for 1 7K swing. But oftentimes, but sometimes that's what you need, right? That's just, you see that 1 extra swing. And so, yep, 4 copies of that. We're running 4 copies of the Eustace Captain Kidd blocker. He's a 5-cost, 6K power, 1K counter, blocker. And your turn, once per turn, when a Dawn card from your field is returned to your Dawn deck, you can set one as active. And so he lets you re-ramp the Dawn that you're minusing, which is a really strong effect. However, in this meta, like honestly, I have a hard time finding a good time to drop him. I'd almost always rather drop something like a Magellan. If I don't need the blocker, I'd rather drop the Missile Sunday or Queen even, because in a meta where whatever you're summoning is getting kind of popped the next turn anyway, he has the least value amongst all these, right? Because Queen, you immediately get the card draw and the blocker. Robin, you obviously get the card draw, and Magellan, you get the Dawn neg anyway. And so I've had a hard time finding a good time to drop the kid in those games, but where I found him useful is in the very end of the game, right? Where I just need to establish some blockers, and so playing him out and playing the next 2K out, which is Sanji, have been really great for the late game. And next we have the Sanji. We're running 4 copies of this. He's a 6 cost, 6K power, and a 2K counter. Pretty expensive, but if you have 2 or fewer Dawn cards than your opponent, this card costs 3 less. So he becomes a 3 cost 6K blocker, which is very good, right? And so he's also 2K in hand, so he's not dead in hands, but he's your late game blocker option, right? Because he only really works in this deck because we play Kaido. And so what you do is you basically play Kaido, you return the 5 Dawn to your Dawn deck. Even when you ramp the next turn, by this point your opponent's probably at least 2 Dawn ahead of you. And so you can pretty much play the Sanji for 3 the following turn to establish a blocker and a body that can swing 6K. And so that's really strong. And so I do like to keep these for the end of the game. I generally try to counter out with like the Khalifa or Fernoskis first, if possible. But yeah, very, very strong card. Really flexible. Again, I love flexible cards. You'll see me say that in like all my deck profile videos. Any cards that can like have multi-function, I do enjoy running. And so we're running 2 copies of the Charlotte Linlin. This is the new one from set 8. She's a 9 cost 9K power. On play, Dawn -1, trash 1 card from your hand. Add up to 1 card from the top of your deck to the top of your life. Then place one of your opponent's up to one of your opponent's characters with a cost of 6 or less to the top or bottom of the owner's life face up. And so I've had like a love-hate relationship with this card, because even in like a Luffy deck against like black, I'm like oftentimes rushing to get them down to 0 and just push for game. And you're negging I know you're getting some sense of control by putting a 6 cost back into their life and healing, but sometimes I just buy my opponent more turns to get more outs. And so sometimes I find myself just dropping this just to heal one and playing out a big body when I don't have the Kaido. I rarely use its effect unless I can't deal with something on the board that I need to get rid of, like a Kuzan 4 cost or something of that nature. But yes, it does feel kind of neg though, healing my opponent. And I don't know, maybe you guys can give me your thoughts on it, but especially in this current meta where black is running rampant, I think it's almost comfortable for a black player to have their life increase, even if they're like losing out on a body on the board. And so I don't know, let me know your thoughts about that. But anyway, we're running 4 copies of the ulti. She's 4 cost 5K, and we're running 4 copies of page 1. I'll talk about them together because there's the combo. So ulti is a 2K, which is really great defensively. And on play, Dawn -1. You can play one page 1 with a cost of 4 or less from your hands, which we are running 4 of. Who's a 4 cost 6K body, 1K counter. Just a vanilla card, really strong stat line. Can be cheated out by ulti, so that's why we're running 4 and 4. Because if you can establish this turn 2 going first, you're in a really great spot, right? Because turn 2, you're at 3 Dawn, you ramp 1 with Luffy's leader ability, play ulti into page 1. Now you've established 2 4-cost bodies, 1 being a 6K, and you now have 3 attacks going into your opponent next turn, while just they're only going to be on 4 Dawn to like try to respond to that. And so, yeah, very strong, very good at setting the tempo and pace of the game. We're running 4 copies of Kaido. This card's so good. You need to see it in like 90% of your matchups. He's a 9-cost 10k power. On play, Don -5. You can KO one of your opponent's characters with the cost of 6 or less. Then this character gains Rush. And so really good at like taking out a blocker while coming out onto the board and then being able to swing right away. Again, in a meta where removal's so heavy, it gets to swing and get its value in, even if it does get removed the next turn. And so I love this card. We're running it at 4 of. Kind of sad that the newer starter decks aren't going to be, or the new starter deck iteration doesn't run this as often. But again, we need to set a 4 of in this deck, I think. We're running 4 copies of Queen. He's the 5-cost 6k power, 1k counter. Blocker attribute, and on play, Don -1, draw 2 cards and trash 1 from your hand. Such a good effect. I think it's just such a staple card in purple. Being able to draw 2, trash 1, lets you cycle your hands, and it allows us to be a little bit more flexible playing all these bricks, right? Because we're able to get rid of it with things like Queen. And so, yeah, really strong card. He can be a swinger also, just 1k. One Dawn attached to him makes him a 7k swing. Very good. We're running 3 copies of the 4-drop Law blocker. He's the 4-cost 5k power, 1k counter blocker. On play, Dawn -1. If your opponent has 7 or more cards, you may trash 2 from their hand. So it's really good into a lot of the current meta, right? Because like Bonnie, BY Luffy, Starter 14 Luffy, Luchi. Oftentimes they have like these enormous hands, especially when you're going kind of aggro into them. Like they're taking the first 2 hits. If you can just drop a Law after that, pick 2 cards out of their hands, you not only have established your board, but significantly impacted their ability to crack back and defend themselves, right? And so, very good card. Running it at 3 of. Man, sometimes I wish I even had it at a 4 of, but I don't know what I would reduce, honestly. I like the ratios as is currently, but yeah, just another blocker, right, that we can establish in the later game too if we need it. We're running 1 copy of Sheepshorn. Maybe this is the card I do take out to run another 4th Law, but I do like this card a lot, and I wish I could find room to run 2 of it, but it's a 2-cost activated on your main. Dawn -1, rest up to one of your opponent's characters with the cost of 6 or less. Just really good at resting like a Sabo and then being able to swing for game. Just another quick option to kind of get around the current meta. And last but not least, we have the 2 defensive events rather. And so we have 2 copies of the 0-cost Gum Gum Jet Gatling. You may discard 1 card from your hand, and then one of your leader characters gets 3,000 power for the battle. And it has a trigger of add up to 1 Dawn from your Dawn deck and set it as active. So it's a fantastic trigger, being able to ramp you. If you high roll your triggers, you're dropping your Kaido so early, and it just becomes like so devastating. But yeah, anyway, this is another good defensive card. Helps us get rid of bricks in our hand that we no longer lead. Like such as late Magellan, we're probably never going to play that, and so it could just be a good card to pair with Gum Gum Jet Gatling to just be defensive. And lastly, we're running 2 copies of Blast Breath. A 1-cost 4k power counter is just so good. It'll help save you or your board in many matchups, and so running it at 2 of seems okay to me so far. But yeah, this is the deck list. Let me know what you guys think. I really love this deck. I'm going to be doing an updated video talking about the 8.5 iteration as well, but I wanted to get this video out there just to show and hopefully have some of you guys test the 8 version of it. And yeah, I do think this leader, it does have a spot because Law is no longer in the meta, right? And Law was able to kind of like arbitrarily deal with a lot of what Purple Luffy was trying to do. And so, yeah, with him out of the picture, I do think he has like a decent match into black. It's hard for sure. I think it's black favored still, but it doesn't make it unwinnable, right? And so you've got a pretty good matchup into those. Got a pretty good matchup into black yellow Luffy. A decent matchup, but even into the blue decks, and so very good into Nami too, from my experience. Magellan really hurts that deck as well, and so yeah, let me know what you guys think. And with that being said, let's get into some gameplay. All right, so let's do a game against Luchi. We're gonna choose to go second. And I like this hands. Well, maybe we can see the top end later, but we got the Magellan, so we're going to keep it. Magellan on curve is really good. Other thing is page 1 ulti combo is really good against Luchi, especially if we can't answer it for one turn. You get quite a few swings in and really start pressuring their hands. Move this over so we can see the whole hands. Although I generally don't like to take the first hit, I'm only going to be ramping once, and I'm kind of okay staying at 3 life. So we'll take it. So here, we're going to just swing at Luchi. It'd be great to draw Paulie for the following turn, but we'll see. And then we will ramp. Oh, double Magellan's also very good. So I know Luchi does play the 6-drop Brook that can get rid of this, but it is what it is. So he hard plays the Khalifa, probably going to swing 5. We'll counter out with the page 1. And then we're going to drop another Magellan, and we're going to start to really pressure his life and his hands. So he's smart. He's scratching the Gecko Morias. He's probably not going to get to it till much later anyway. He's probably only get to play 1 anyway in this game, and so I don't think it's terrible that he's trashing it. So I think I'm going to swing 5-7 and then drop him another Magellan. Counters out Saba. He'll probably take the 7. And then we drop the next Magellan and we'll say pass. At this point, it would be nice to see some 2Ks. I'm surprised I don't have any since I'm running so many in the deck, but alas, he's just swinging 5, so it's kind of okay for now. We will counter out with another page 1. Maybe dropping a Sabo next. Wow, so that's 3 Gecko Morias in the trash right now. My opponent's thinking. So he plays out the Rebecca. Maybe grabbing back a Sabo. Oh, grabbing back the Luchi from trash. That's surprising. But I guess since he won't be playing Moria, he wants some KO power. He'll swing another 5. Here, I'm going to counter out with Bone Clay. Let's see. I'm going to play the Robin. Arguably, the Kid might have been better, but I did want to ramp 1 just to be at 10 next turn. So I think we're going to go swing 5 at the Khalifa. He does counter out of it. That's fine. I'm just going to go 7s at life, actually. He'll probably block with Rebecca in this one. Oh, he took it. Okay. That's fine, because we can always KO. I mean, unless he Sabos, we can KO this Rebecca with Kaido next turn. And so it's not... I don't know. I think he should have blocked. Unless he's going to try to like go for a game at somehow. But he's only at 7 Dawn. I don't know what he's going to do. He does have a lot of cards in hand, though. 10 cards is nothing to scoff at. But he's going to have to do something about my board soon, because I'm just going to keep summoning things and swinging into his life. So he attached 2, and he's swinging in. I'm actually going to counter this. More so than negging him Dawn. Keeping this body alive is definitely better. 5 Dawn remaining. Maybe he does Sabo. Oh, Ice Age. Okay. So I guess he's going to just try to Luchi one of these guys. Which, again, I'm actually totally okay with. I think we're going to summon Kaido, go 5, 5, 7, 9. If anything, we'll take out a lot of cards from his hands and force him to try to go for game next turn, which will be very tough for him at that point. Or rather impossible, so take that out. 5, 5, 7, 9. If this is a finger pistol though, that sucks. He took it, which is crazy. Alright, well I think that should be GG. Unless these are all counters. He must be really bricked actually. These are all non-counters. Hit the 0 cost event of 5k. Oh, he had another 0 cost event. Okay, he only had one more 1k. That's crazy. Look at all these bricks. But yeah, this is the Luffy deck. You can really have a good matchup into Luchi, or even start a 14 Luffy if you see the right pieces. However, if you don't, it's really rough, and so it definitely takes some drawing finesse for sure. Let's get on to the next game. Alright, so here we're up against a black yellow Luffy. We're gonna go second, and we're gonna keep this hand. We have a really good hand for this actually. We have the 3 pieces that I kind of wanted to see, which is the Law, the Bone Clay, and the Magellan. The other route that's actually pretty good is the what's it called? Page 1 ulti combo, but because you can kind of just go wide and then start pressuring life awkwardly or hand awkwardly, and so there is that option, but we're gonna try this anyway. Alright, so he's thinking, turn 1 he did play the Flambe, took a life, and now he's at 3 non. He might just swing 8 into me, or he's swing something to Garb, okay. Kind of sucks, but I'm going to take the 7 here if he does swing 7. If he swings 6 and summons another Garb, I will definitely counter that. We'll take this one. Oh wow, double Magellan. So we will do our ability, and we will definitely play this guy. And I'm gonna swing 5 at him. If he wants to take life next turn, I can threaten lethal. It's annoying for him because he doesn't have quite enough to play a Sabo yet either, which would have been a great play. I'm actually gonna counter out the queen here, and I'll counter out with the Frankie with the leader swing. Let's go swing into Garp. Play another Magellan, and I'll pass the turn here. He has 10 cards in hands. I do want a Law soon. So it looks like he might try the leader ability first. Not leader ability. Set at the top to play one of the little brothers. Then swing like a 6 into me, or 7 into me. Or I guess it would be 8, because he would attach 1. Oh, he's just going to straight up KO. You have to return 2 more down, though. Yeah, I don't know if that's the right call for him. But we'll activate. I guess he is sitting at a 7k. We're just going to use this. Do that. And then I'm going to pass here, actually. I'm going to let him, force him to have to play something out if he wants to grab back that last life. Yeah, being able to mess with your opponent's Dawn in a deck like Black Yellow Luffy just feels so good. It definitely makes it much harder to play. as the black Luffy or black yellow Luffy player. I will actually block out of that one. That's fine. I think we just start swinging 7s here. If he counters out of it, he'll be at 7 on. I'm just gonna like establish like a kid or something like that and then pass the turn. Oh, what's great is that I'm just gonna swing 5 here and he's gonna have to counter out of it too. Great. Now I'm just gonna play the kid and then I'll pass the turn. Arguably, you could say I should have swung with a leader there. I think that's right. Anyway, he's cooked. Yeah, he has no plays in hands. Only 7 Dawn. Next turn, the Kaido is coming out. And so, yeah, really rough game for Black Yellow Luffy if you can see your Magellans early.